Welcome to the adventures of self. Conversations with ordinary and extraordinary people as they explore what it means to be self-expressed. Come on in. Join the adventure.
So welcome, Sarah Louise Ryan, to the Adventures of Self.
Thank you so much for inviting me to join you on the podcast. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I am too. So I just kind of want to jump in. What I get to talk about is love. And I know that can be a very serious topic, but I think we want to bring some play, a sense of adventure, and what's possible with that.
Absolutely. That's exactly what's coming up, like joy, love, connection. So yeah, happy to talk about all things love.
Let's talk about all things love. And I think it's interesting how you bring in joy and connection, which I think many people would say is a natural part of love, but it's kind of almost feels like an untouchable ideal, where often, I don't know, maybe I'm just bringing my own, bringing my own baggage into this, that it's like, oh, love's quite heavy and like you got to work really hard at it.
It's funny. Earlier this morning, I was thinking about some upcoming work, and a lot of questions that are coming up in, I guess, my place of work at the moment is the idealization, like the idea of romanticizing love in a way that it's almost, out of reach or unachievable or hard to obtain or attain or retain, in fact. So I think it's interesting that you have brought like the trail of thought to what's coming up a lot at the moment about how love is difficult, but it doesn't have to be, really doesn't. If we are so present with ourselves and there's so much, we're filling our own cup with love, as the law of attraction would have it, we're attracting so much more of that back into our lives. It's about mastering your mindset around love, I think.
Yeah, the that idea of filling one's own cup. I think when I was younger, I had a real sense that love was going to solve whatever ailed me, and so I looked outside for, a woman to give me the things that I wanted for myself. That didn't go very well, generally. And I think that there is this kind of, we're sort of still sold on this notion, whether it's through perfume ads or movies or pop songs, that there is something out there, there's someone out there that is going to give us all the things we want. And when that day arrives, everything will be joyful and amazing, and we're walking on rainbows and sparkles. And I think that has a sense of why it's romanticized, because it's this beautiful notion and ideal that's kind of always somewhere over the rainbow. It's somewhere out there, and we never, because you were talking about, it's like it's presence. It's when we're here now with ourselves or with the person who's across from us. That's where love is created in the present moment.
Yeah, I think that is so true. And currently reading this book called The Untethered Soul, if you've ever heard of it. And that's about, being really attached to the present moment, but, having a really like a solid air of fluidity. And I think the way, if we look around us in this modern day of love and what love looks like, social media and TV shows are really educating people, or seemingly so, about what looks like. And it's often the idea of instantaneous love. Like you look at all the TV shows that, it's almost like I don't want to, everything's a first and it happens instantaneously, on a first date, or love being blind and things like that. And you see people and TV shows like Love Island and all of that, and I feel like people are really getting what they deem to be an education about how love is obtained in this modern day, from social media and from TV, and it's really unhealthy. So it's either it's like kind of like a double-edged sword, the notion that love is instantaneous, attraction, chemistry, which is a really, it's a big thing to consider, that love can happen like that. We're always searching for instantaneous spark, chemistry, connection, rather than the idea of a slow burning, communicate things out and find that connection. Or that, relationships are difficult and toxic, hard to retain, hard to make work. And so we have to settle for the hardship of what it looks like to be in love or have found love.
Yeah, I think you were saying something there that just got me thinking, like that this idea, it's like we find love, and that slow burn, the word that came to mind was to cultivate, right? So and we think of cultivating plants, flowers, our vegetables, but it is a natural process where something starts from a very tender moment, right? A seed, or particularly a seedling, right? A sapling, whatever, that is just starting to come out of the ground, and it's incredibly tender. The shoots, the roots. I mean, it could die if it doesn't have, if it has too much water, if it has not enough water, if it has too much sun or not enough sun, it can wither. Which is one of the reasons. I don't know if this is where this metaphor is going, but it's one of the reasons why you may plant 12 seeds and only 8 of them come up. Maybe that's something to say about, you go on 12 dates with 12 different people to see what flourishes. But what I was originally starting to say was this idea of cultivating. Yes, there may be an initial spark, but two people are coming at things from different backgrounds, different mindsets, and I think that often in my experience, and when I talk to other people, we have an unconscious thought about where we are and assume where the other person is, just from the first moment you meet somebody. And we're bringing, for most of us, decades of experience and disappointment or expectation, or what society has told us. And it's like, did this person see these movies and have this frame of reference, or is something else going on with this person? And things can get confused very, very quickly.
And so many things that you were saying then, it's just like, oh my gosh, like a little golden nugget of information that I just wanted to jump in on. And I think the first thing I'd like to share is that what you were saying there, it came up in my mind, that the saying, my perception of you is a reflection of me. And it's when you bring all of those things and those expectations, and you're perceiving somebody that you're dating, but really it's a reflection of your experiences, because that's all we have and the lessons we've learned from them. And another thing that came up for me was, you're talking about, planting all of those seeds. You've got 12 and 8 might flourish, and you'll just see where those goes. And the analogy for dating there is that people are energetically investing in this modern world of meeting lots of people, in so many people at once, that I personally, not just professionally, feel that we are energy, and we're dividing our energy amongst those seeds. And so we can never, when we're multi-dating, in my mind, energetically fully show up and fully be present and fully be, all the different facets of ourselves with each and every one of those people, those seeds, and flourish it in its full capacity, to cultivate it, because we're so divided. Our attention is somewhat lacking, and so is our energy.
And what it feels like is, that's kind of another double-edged sword, because there is this sort of more traditional notion, that sort of romantic notion of like, well, you find the one person, and that is your divine soulmate that was written in scripture from time immemorial, and that's the person that is for you. And we still, I think, have an idea, and I don't know if it's because we want that, maybe it's a reflection of not wanting to divide ourselves more, because we don't want to think that the other person's going to see that I'm inadequate and not enough for that person, right? And yet then we also have and I think this is true for men and women, we are multifaceted. So we have lots of different interests, and it's unrealistic to imagine that one person is going to, I don't know, like a puzzle piece, but like an intricate human-sized puzzle piece over decades, going to fit exactly second to second, moment to moment, who you are, how you're growing, what you're becoming. And so there's, not to say, I don't know, we can get into polygamy or, polyamorous, whatever, but it's not even about that. It's about, well, I have a lot of different interests, and so do you. And maybe I don't match all of those. So, there are things I'm going to do with certain other friends, and I want you to do as well.
Yeah, I think when you were talking about the one just then, I have quite a strong opinion that we are not meant for just one. It's not that I'm not that I'm not I really believe in meaningful monogamy. I'm always really publicly clear about that. My experience of being in conversation with people who are into ethical non-monogamy or non-monogamy, however that looks for them, I often find that at the end of the conversation, they are still searching for that one true, deep, meaningful connection, and they are enjoying the company of lots of connections in search for that one. But on the other side of that is that the idea that the one exists, I think, is really unhealthy. And that's because we're compatible with so many different people. We change, we grow, we evolve, we learn. And so we can change with somebody or we can grow apart, right? And I think there's another beautiful saying that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I believe that too. And it's to move something in us, to grow something in us, to change something in us, subconsciously. And it's all about shifting and moving and going forward. And I think the idea that the one exists is unhealthy because it romanticizes this massive connection, and it's almost dilutes any connection we have where we feel like this could be my person, but what else is out there? Is there something more? Is there something better? And I think the idea of the one really feeds into the next please mentality that we see too often in modern dating. People are always looking for the grass to be a little bit greener, that flourishing seed to be a little bit bigger. And so people are on to the next, forever searching for that one true person for them. And I think there are many people out there that we can be connected to or are connected to, but we just, I guess, are exploring. I don't really know where I'm going with that, but we're always exploring, but we're always wanting more, is what I'm saying. But if we can eradicate the idea that one true person exists, we might seek connection with those people that we're meeting and not just discarding, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it goes to, I think, maybe something about not just modern dating, but modern life, that the social media world we live in, there are all these platforms, and I think it's definitely become accelerated, or certainly in the last 10 to 15 years, with, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, where there's always something more to look at. I don't know, maybe there was a time in the beginning of, say, Facebook, when you only had 20 friends or something like that, and you would scroll through and you would get to a point where there was no more posts or anything to look at, but you could literally spend 24 hours a day continuing to scroll through posts and look at things and going on to new things, because now it's got algorithms just to suggest lots of stuff, and got advertisements and all sorts of things. And I see other things do that as well. So there's this bottomless pit of opportunity to continue to look at other things. And when I've interacted with the modern dating apps, where you're just continuing swipe. Well, let me go through another 10, 100, or 1,000 people to find, and then you're just trying, you're in this kind of like, well, let me maximize what the opportunities are in a particular realm, rather than really focusing. It's like, well, what is it I actually want, and thinking about how to, like we're saying, how to actually cultivate that with somebody. I mean, a relationship is about, not that it's work in the sense of like um, uh, turmoil or toil, but it takes action. It takes learning. It takes listening. It takes presence to be with somebody, to learn and decide what is it that I want, and how do we as two people create that together.
Yeah, I think you're so right. It's not just about the modern world of dating, it's about the world that we live in today. And we're totally oversaturated by everything that, of course, that will somehow infiltrate, dating and relationships and all the beginning stages of cultivating something romantically speaking. And I think it's just the paradox of choice. There's, when you look at how people can connect, singles, there are so many at each other's fingertips today that they're swiping all the different directions, meeting on platforms, at events. Hopefully, I guess now the world has reopened somewhat, and I think there's the idea, there's such a paradox of choice that people struggle to make a decision. I think love is about choice, and it's about choosing. I like who I am with you. I like who I am feeling connected to you, and so I choose you. I think love isn't just about chemistry and spark and stimulation of all of the senses, and intellectually speaking too. I think love is a choice, because everything's so easy to get that that connection becomes harder to find. So paradox of choice is a key player in people sowing all those seeds and all of that, and not truly connecting.
And I think just to maybe flesh out a little bit more the paradox of choice, what I understand from that, and maybe you have a different interpretation, is that on the one hand we do want choice, right? We do want an opportunity to meet different people, but with too much choice, then we're kind of frozen in that, and so then it's like, well, I actually don't know how to make a choice because there's too much to choose from.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. It's there's too much choice, and I think narrowing it down and kind of navigating the way through that would be to sit with, okay, well, what is it that you choose? What do you consciously know about yourself that you value, that you connect with, that your lifestyle feels attached to? Like, who are you, and what kind of life do you want to create, and what kind of person do you feel, given all of the learnings from your previous dating experiences, long-term relationships, marriages, whatever? What have you learned about you? Have you taken stock? What is it that you now choose for your life, and who are you choosing to welcome into your life? And have you thought about how you're aligning yourself with those kinds of people? Because otherwise you are just out there putting yourself out there, perhaps creating a digital footprint in the dating space, but you're going to attract lots of people, but then the energy you invest in sieving out those who are right for you will be greater, and it will feel more resistant. And it's almost like you've got to build resilience to get through, to keep connecting with the people that feel right for you, if you haven't aligned yourself and clearly communicated what you're looking for and who you're looking to connect with. So sometimes I feel like people, especially if they're looking for a significant relationship, a significant other, they make dating harder for themselves if they're not clear about their wants and they're not attracting those wants into their life.
Yeah, what comes through is almost having a sketch idea of what it is that you're looking to create. It's not a it's not a sort of paint by numbers, like the person has to fit these 7 or 27 criteria or however many you choose on, but it's actually more about what it is you want for yourself. And because then that makes conversations with somebody much clearer, because I think what can often happen is, we do have that initial spark. You see somebody and you're like, wow, I don't know what it is, whether it's the way they look or the way they talk about something or the way they act, something, we have a chemical or some other attraction to somebody. And that's great, right? I mean, that's I'm sure a biological necessity in terms of, species, going on. And when we think about, and if that's all you want to do, well, that's great. You can do that and progress the species. Somebody's going to have to take care of the little child. But if you want to create something that is lasting, being upfront with yourself first and foremost, maybe, it's like, what are your values? What are you looking to create? What are the things you want? Because then you can start to have those conversations. Because often what can happen, I imagine, and I can relate to this myself, you get involved in something that's sort of quite passionate and exciting in the beginning, and then you're, whether it's a week or a month or several months in, sort of thinking, oh, have we talked about the things that actually matter to us individually, let alone collectively, going forward? And then if you haven't, and you hit a sort of a rupture, and it's like, wow, we find out we're incompatible, or we're not willing to discuss these things, or we don't know how to discuss these things. And then you're kind of back to square one, and you're kind of playing that out over and over again.
Yeah, I feel that this is a conversation that comes up time and time again, especially in the coaching space for, those who are kind of working their way through, trying to figure out what's serving them in dating and what's not. And it's often that these conversations are not coming up soon enough, and they are then figuring out a bit later down the line, having invested time, energy, motion, and all of that, the connectivity, that they're not on the same page. And I think we're not really taught as human beings how to compromise and negotiate without ever negotiating our sense of worth. And so we end up having to choosing to avoid conversations that might result in something conflicting. It's kind of just like towing the line, really. But what kind of life is that? It's like passivity. It's mediocre, because we're not truly connecting with what we want and deserve and desire. So we're just like, okay, I'll wait, I'll hold off for the right moment to have that conversation. Or perhaps they're not, people are not so consciously aware of what they want, that it's just it's an afterthought. Oh, this is actually important to me. Maybe I should have asked that. And so at this point, they've invested a lot of time and energy and emotion, and they just find out, like I said earlier, just not on the same page. It's better to just get those conversations out of the way to see if you're really connected to that person and their values.
I was just sort of thinking over the last few minutes that, and I sort of sometimes often do this in the podcast, where I kind of just get started on something, in about 15, 20 minutes in, I think, oh, let's actually maybe take a step backwards and start to talk about, who you are, where you come from. I mean, it'll be in the intro and the show notes, but to really, talk about, your experience, because you've been in working in, I said, the dating world or the matchmaking world. Yes. for many years, and so I'm curious, sort of like, I was thinking about this earlier today, how do you start into the matchmaking world? I have a very stereotypical and just sort of very unitary sense, but I mean, I know you as a person, so but it's like this sense that I was thinking, it's like, well, for a man, that he must be a player, right? He must be like, oh, out dating, and then can help all the other men, go out and find dates. Yeah, like I have a sense for women, and I'm just going to throw my bias out there, because I want you to like say, no, that's not me, or that is me, right? And what brought you into this. There's one sense is kind of like a bit of Bridget Jones' Diary, kind of like this very empowered sense, and also there is a, I think, just because I know you, this very warm, like wanting the best for people and wanting to help people create what is possible for them.
so many answers to all of those kind of questions. Well, first of all, I guess I put myself in a man's shoes, and they might think that a matchmaker is essentially, helping them connect with people that are looking for the same thing as them, almost like a wingman. But the men that come to a matchmaker, often it's a big drop of the ego for them. And more often than not, when men come to matchmaking services, it's because they have decided that dating isn't serving them or working for them, or they're not sure where they're perhaps going wrong in dating. Things aren't working out the way they would like it to. So they, just like hiring a personal trainer, to get fit, they think, okay, well, I'll hire somebody professional to help me kind of figure this thing out because it's something that I truly want. More often than not, they've worked really hard most of their life, had lots of dating scenarios, and then typically a matchmaker would attract male clients in their 40s who have made a decision that they'd like to build a family and build something significant. So that's the kind of heterosexual male that we would attract as matchmakers. For females, it's there's no stigma around it. There's no, oh, it's just one of those actionable to-do list things. Like, okay, well, modern dating is tricky. There's a lot of choice. I'm investing a lot of time that I often do not have. And so it's just one of those things where they, I guess, endorse somebody to help them meet, other heterosexual people, obviously men, on their wavelength, and they see it as a time saver. That's kind of a bit of a whitewash of the scenario, but I'm celebrating 10 years this summer as a matchmaker. It's been, I could blink, I don't know where the time went, and it's had its ups and downs and trials and tribulations, and the way the dating industry has evolved over the last decade has been absolutely fascinating to see and also to be a part of. And I feel like I don't feel like, I know that when I studied international marketing, right? And I'm from Manchester. You can probably tell by my quirky accent. 10 years in London and the States has kind of skewed it somewhat, but I'm definitely Mancunian, and Mancunians are notorious for being people persons. And I graduated in international marketing and I moved to London. I started working in the fashion industry, and then I started working in marketing for a big company. And I just realized, this is not for me. This is not for me. It's not where I want to be in my life. I'd always wanted to be in the fashion industry. I'd always wanted to be part of a business somewhat, and I knew that marketing was a passion of mine. But I just wasn't clicking. I wasn't gelling with it in my early 20s. And I was like, what is a girl to do? And it was meant to be, honestly. A thumbnail ad appeared on my screen at work one day in the corner of Google, and it said junior matchmaker wanted for a Mayfair dating agency. And I was like, what? Dating agencies, like marriage bureaus, do they still exist? I was like, oh my gosh, this is the job for me. I can do that with the back of my hand. What? Chatting to people, learning what they want, learning about their values, and just connecting them, running around London with a little black book of singles. I was like, that job is me. And so I sent off my limited CV at the time, because I'd literally just graduated, and I met the CEO of this Mayfair matchmaking company, having had a chat with him on the phone, and then it turned into a 6-hour interview, loads of coffee, loads of excitement from my part, and I was like, this is a job for me. And he was like, you're hired when you start. 2 weeks later, literally sat behind a desk in Mayfair, meeting pilots, CEOs of big companies, lawyers, doctors, bankers, solicitors in my early 20s, just feeling like, I've got this. It's perfect for me. And so I started off as a junior matchmaker. 4 years later, still with that company, training lots of matchmakers. I had a small team across London. Then I was headhunted to take over an international matchmaking firm, where I think I had around 25 matchmakers at that time, and we operated all across the States, all across Europe, Australia, Israel, and loads of clients in London. And so I ran that company for a few years. And then I took a break from the dating industry because it became so second nature. I wanted to kind of test my own personal kind of boundaries, growth. I stepped away and I reflected and I was like, is this industry for me? Am I doing it because it's what I've done for the whole of my adult life and my career? Or am I doing it just because I love people and it's my vocation? So I took a step away for a couple of months. And I realized, absolutely, I tried something completely different, which was not people orientated. I worked at a hedge fund. I thought that was going to be a break. That's how driven I am. I thought, oh, I'll take a break. I'll work at a hedge fund. Didn't quite work out. I was like, okay, this is not for me. Definitely back to the people. So then I built my small group of companies. I have a matchmaking agency called Love Connections, and we work on a local scale, nationwide and globally, for single professionals who are serious about what I call meaningful monogamy, which I mentioned earlier. Then I've got a coaching company called Love Lessons, and we, a small team, coach singles who are navigating the path of finding love, couples who are looking for that rejuvenation in their relationship. And one of the biggest parts of what I do is I have a consultancy agency called the Love Consultancy. So I work for really big brands as the voice of connection in dating, relationships. And I'm in the process of building a kind of like a dating business boot camp, so to speak, passing on the baton to teach people how to build really successful dating agencies and singles events companies and coaching businesses in the love space. Because I've learned a lot, I've seen a lot, I've worked in all different fields, and I feel like, okay, well, it's time to teach what I know. I'll do the 10 years the justice it deserves. And yeah, that's what keeps me out of trouble, keeps me on my toes.
I'm interested in the concept of this kind of like connection consulting, because I mean, that sounds like a very new concept, but bringing that into, because what I see is there are lots of organizations, corporations, companies that are doing different things, are doing new things, and some of them may work, some of them may not. But there's more of a recognition, and I wouldn't say this is universal. I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago who is a change agent maker in the digital and corporate space, and talking about what's working and where sort of things are going, right? Because like we're in this very transitional period, and that's a I kind of connect with and understand the matchmaking space and the coaching space, but the consulting, I mean, I kind of get the idea of helping others, but this idea of bringing connection into organizations, I think that's quite unique.
I think something that you said earlier really is kind of a bridge to that. You said, do you have a matchmaking agency because you want to help others? Well, the answer is yes. And so many people, just like in any industry, build businesses because they want to help others, they want to do something. And we do know that a lot of businesses fail after their first or second year, they can't sustain. And so there are many people that start dating agencies or...
Somebody's happy.
Do you edit this? No?
We can if necessary.
I think so. Anyway, so many people start dating agencies with the idea that it's all fun and it's all just marriages, babies, matches, testimonials. And they don't come in with an entrepreneurial mindset and a business mind to understand how to make the business in the love space thrive, not just survive. And so I guess it's the consultancy part of what I do is teaching people how to take their passion project into a profitable business, because they come into the dating space thinking, oh, it's easy. But actually, what they often don't realize is that managing human beings' expectations of other human beings is a really tough job. The reason people that want to often build businesses in this space is because they're empathetic. and they are constantly, you know, connecting with the emotions of the clients. And there has to be, you know, the ability to compartmentalize so you can build a sustainable business. So it's me bringing the business mind and the business acronym from the dating industry to, I guess, these romantic empaths that want to create marriages, and teaching them how to combine the two to build a brand that singles love.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing that. It sort of takes me back to what we were talking about in terms of like creating a relationship between two people, because we kind of go in with this, you know, so, as you say, some of these romantic empaths may go in with a specific expectation. This is how things are going to be. It's going to be, you know, rainbows and sparkles, and everything's going to be magical. And you know, the reality of the world is it's not that it cannot be, but what it takes to create that. And what I hear you saying is there is a, you know, it's connecting you to your values, to what it is you're creating. Because I'm sure, you know, particularly now, like dating, matchmaking, it's a bit of a dime a dozen. Like there's so many, you know, you're again sort of paradox of choice, right? It's like, ooh, which app do I use, or which you know, more professional specialized matchmaking service or agency do I use? Because they've it's kind of exploded as an idea and concept, and you know, many people are familiar with the, you know, sort of the more you know, mobile based apps that where you're just swiping and going through people, but even in, I'm sure in your space where it's much more, you know, specialized and focused, and you know, getting to know your clients individually to connect people, there's lots of options that people can go to.
There are so many options, and I think it, you know, the consultancy side have really helped people find their niche as well, to really connect with, okay, well, what are they building other than a company that just brings people together? Who are they? How do they bring their personality, their credibility, their brand, their persona to their brand, and how do they make that attractive to attract singles in? Because like you say, there are so many options. So I guess that's what's really keeping me on my toes. People are really interested in this, and I think the dating industry is one of the biggest industries, but companies, just like in any other industry, they start, they struggle to scale, and they struggle to grow, and more often than not it's because they're struggling to understand the customer and the experience of the matchmaking process. And there's a bit of an intricacy that I'll share with you quite happily, and I do talk about it often, that there's, when somebody invests in you financially, there's a psychological process that takes place. They often then, when they transfer money, they're transferring ownership and responsibility of their love lives to the professional that they're endorsing for, I guess, the search or for the service. And so a lot of time managing people and their expectations that they will be married by the end of a year of matchmaking is really tricky. And so I teach people I teach businesses how to take singles through a journey that is enjoyable no matter the outcome, because it's not tangible. We can't, as business owners, as matchmakers, find that one key ingredient, which is chemistry. We can do all of the work for you, take the leg work out of what you might find in the online dating space, you know, those websites and all of that, by connecting you with someone who has a similar lifestyle, values, the same wants for family or not, marriage, ideas on what lifestyle in a relationship looks like, whether it's monogamy or not. Matchmakers can do all sorts of different things, but the one ingredient they can never get is chemistry between two people, and we just know that as human beings. And so helping matchmakers create that journey and imagine their manage their emotional investment, meanwhile creating a customer service journey for singles to really enjoy, like, the process of dating as well with the company they've invested with. That's really what I specialize in.
Yeah, when you were speaking about the handing over of ownership, I mean, it's very interesting to think about that. Certainly in the coaching space that I'm in, I sort of really try to push that back onto anybody, because I'm not interested in taking ownership for anybody's problems. I'm interested in helping and facilitating people to deal with their own problems. But I do recognize that there is a sense of there's a process that people go through, and I think, you know, even as a consumer, from my own sake, I can recognize what it means, you know, to go through a particular undertaking process, thought process to decide, okay, am I going to give my money to company X or company Y for product A or service B, you know, and how intricate that can be. And I was thinking, because I mean, you run a matchmaking agency, and, you know, as I say, people are so familiar with all of the apps that are on mobile, and they're predominantly free. I mean, I think I haven't been on for quite a while, so I don't really know. But they used to be predominantly free, and they were starting to add some you know, paid premium services to get you better matches, or I don't know what it was, quicker, you know, the VIP service on Who Is There. And there were also, you know, because like before the apps, you know, there were websites that were doing this, and, you know, again, lots of, I mean, OkCupid and Matchmaker, and I mean, here in the UK there was Guardian Soulmates, and
Oh yes, that old chestnut. I remember Guardian Soulmate.
I was on Guardian Soulmates. I remember then we like came across somebody, you know, like you know, you'd come across people you knew in your work industry, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is a little too close for comfort. And there is a sense, because what I get from those, I mean, you know, I think the apps, it's just algorithms, and I'm sure there are different ways you can write the algorithms to create that. And, you know, and they have different things, because they sort of have different things that they're focused on, or how they're marketed, right? So like Hinge, you're connected to friends of friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I always thought that was an interesting. I always thought that was an interesting way to create, like, you know, a nuance to what is essentially a black box. And what I was going to say is like that certainly for the older web-based matchmaking sites, it does feel a bit like a black box. But you know, you're providing much more specialized services, and have been doing this for 10 years or more. So what, I mean, you know, maybe lift the lid off. What's kind of going into your calculus and analysis to do it all, and hopefully maximize the chemistry potential?
Yeah, interesting. Very good question. It's like we have, just like with any business, an application form, and people just fill out a handful of details. This tells a little bit, very vaguely, about who they are, the kind of person they're looking to meet. They also kind of quite specific about the location in which they're, you know, how does love know no bounds, or, you know, are you looking locally, nationwide, or globally? And then every single person that applies is invited for a session of time to share the space with a matchmaker. And the questioning, I guess, is very informal, or seemingly so, but actually, because they need to feel comfortable, that they're friendly, that they can talk to their matchmaker and share what's so vulnerable about them. You know, the most vulnerable and valuable part of their life is often the relationship that they have with themselves, and the romantic relationship that they're hopefully about to have with somebody else. And so they're sharing with you all the different things that they've learned from previous relationships. And I personally, I guess I don't really hold back in those consultations, because I think the more I get to know a client, you know, I've got nothing to lose after 10 years of meeting singles all around the world. I want to know, what did you learn from all of your previous relationships and encounters about yourself? What are you doing in the dating journey for yourself right now? What are you doing that has served you or hasn't? How proactive are you being? Are you expecting a partner to just be delivered to you like Amazon Prime, just because you hire a matchmaker? Or what work are you doing on yourself to consciously get to know yourself better? And so we work through the groundwork on that. And then we get to grips with lifestyle. You know, what are they doing, like professionally? What kind of balance? Like, we don't care too much about people's professions, because that's not what we're dealing with. But if their profession is something that they feel defines them and it matters, then of course we want to know more about that. And we try to understand, what are they looking to, as you would say, cultivate? What does a relationship look like to them? The matching values, how do they communicate? What do they want? What are their non-negotiables? What have they learned doesn't serve them? And I guess we really get into it. So every single person has a consultation, and we decide, based on what they share with us in that conversation, that they're searching for in a partner, if we can work with them. So the way we work differently, so you say you've got A, B, and C matchmaker out there, is that we work as headhunters for love, so to speak. So we take on a client and we recruit potentials for them based on all of those non-negotiables, lifestyle, parameters in age, and all of that. So yes, people can do this for themselves online, but what they have to do is go on, they sieve out those people that are chatting with them, matching with them and whatnot. And then they have to identify who they're willing to invest the time in to go on a date with. And then they invest 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 dates before they can ask those tricky questions about compatibility. Well, the thing is about hiring a matchmaker is we don't hold back on those questions. So, when you go on a date with somebody, they have the same wants as you. They understand that, we understand that those non-negotiables that you have, but they don't have. It's not to negotiate because they are on your wavelength. Often we look at emotional compatibility, intellectual compatibility, and we see where they're at, what's meaningful for them, and we create those connections. And we also, non-romantically have to look at the logistics. If one person's living in the States, are they willing to relocate? Well, even though Deborah might be great for Dan, actually Deborah doesn't want to move to the States and Dan's not willing to relocate. So we go through the process of elimination. So we create like a whole pipeline of what I call potentials to people. And we work through getting to know them, headhunting them, recruiting them for our actively searching clients. And we make introductions based on that pipeline of strong, potentially compatible suitors. And then we introduce them. All they have to do is go on a date and see if there's chemistry and feedback to us. And the feedback's really an important part of the process, because with modern dating, as I call it, people go online swiping left, right, and up and down. They go on dates, and then you hear of ghosting, cushioning, breadcrumbing, deleting, blocking, whatever after these dates. So what I feel is really wrong with the world of meeting today is there's no accountability and there's no responsibility. The paradox of choice that's brought about this kind of like next please mentality has somehow allowed for so many singles to see each other as disposable, to discard of them if there's no chemistry. But we work in a really kind way, authentically. We expect a high amount of integrity. And if you go on a date and it didn't work out, there's no way you will be going on another date unless we know how that went and you're happy for us to feed back. So there's confidentiality, there's no digital footprint, there's introductions based on that compatibility. We've energetically got to know each person. Like, actually, even though on paper, so to speak, Dan and Deborah might be a good fit, energetically, the matchmaking team have met them when we just don't think they'll gel somehow based on our human interaction with them. So there's a lot of things that go into the process.
And I mean, you've been on your own adventure through this, and I think it's interesting to maybe just dive a little bit more into your personal adventure, because like you were talking how this thing kind of came to you. It sort of showed up in an ad on a computer screen, and you just immediately said, yeah, that's the thing. And it did, and you had a bit of you spoke about like taking a little time off. I know you had a bit of a business wobble and a challenge, because I think I think just going to your story and understanding a bit, because one of the things that's this show is about is like, well, what's your own journey of self-discovery and self-expression in this? Because you said like you kind of went through this moment of like, well, is this the thing for me? Is this what I've been doing, or is this really, really true for me? And how do you square that with yourself?
Really, really interesting. A good question as well. I think up to that point where I literally took a step back. Sometimes the analogy of like being an elastic band, you have to take a step back to spring forward. And that's how I see that point, that pinnacle in the dating industry right there. So I think that I was like six years in or something, and everything was second nature. I was loving it, but not sure if it was like my vocation. And I needed to step back to kind of take stock. And I'm really a massive believer in, accountability and being responsible. And I thought, am I choosing to create this life, or am I allowing things to just happen to me? Being headhunted for one role, running this business, that business, creating that success. And I thought, okay, so if you don't have your own businesses and you're running other people's businesses, you're making other people really quite wealthy. You have the strength, the resilience, the knowledge, the capability to create some really beautiful things. So why aren't you doing it? So I had to start my own journey. And I'd say the last 5 years or so have been a real self-development journey for me. I'm always working to become more conscious of how I feel in situations in business with clients. And I don't work with clients that I don't gel with on a personal level, because I think it's such a personal process to take somebody through that the clients really define the business as well. So I decided after, a bit of a wobble is probably what we called it, to really just see, I think I was lacking I didn't know my worth. I didn't have my own self-worth. I was so busy teaching other people about their self-worth and what they should attract. I was thinking, what am I attracting into my life? What am I building? What am I working consciously, and am I choosing this? And that's when I started to map out. I took about so I did my hedge funding, as I mentioned, but also then was like, okay, this is not for me. And I took about 4 months off, gardening, traveling, not escaping. I wanted to really get into it. I wasn't by any means escaping. And I was vision boarding all of the time. What do I choose for all the different areas of my life? Am I dividing them up and looking at all the facets? And where am I? And am I actualizing the life that I want to create? So that's when I decided, okay, I'm taking stock, and everything I do everything with love. I do everything in the business of love. So why don't we start a coaching company called Love Lessons and help people take stock of their own journey? So because I'd always been in the matchmaking space from off the back of the coaching business, people were having successful coaching journeys with me, and then they were asking for matchmaking. So that's when I organically built Love Connections. And then because of my experience in the dating industry, so many people coming to me for consultancy, that's where the Love Consultant, and it was all this process of growth that came from within, and it showed up externally. I mean, I have had so many different ups and downs in the dating industry, because it isn't all romantic. It is a business, and there are things. And I think I had a lot of imposter syndrome as well, because at this point, I'm in my 30s now, but I'm at that point was like 26, been in the dating industry for a long time, writing for big publications. And I was just like, am I worthy of this? I've been managing a team globally, but I went through my own heartbreak as well after a long-term relationship. And I was like, well, what do I know? How am I teaching people about their own love lives when I don't know what's going on with mine? And I really need to sit with all of the stuff. I needed to take it all back to basics and learn my worth, eradicate imposter syndrome as a female, which right now there's a lot of females in the matchmaking space, but I'd say over the last decade, it has been male dominated. And so in my 20s, having the audacity, I thought, to start my own business as a female, I was just like, do I even know what I'm doing? And then I was just like, start before you're ready, Sarah, and just do it. And I was so ready. I just didn't know it. I needed to find it within, work on my confidence, my self-worth, my ability to grow a business and scale. And that's where I was at.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And I think that I can relate to aspects of that. And I'm just remembering a couple of other recent episodes of that we've had of people talking about, because what I really like to get into these aspects that where we go through our own growth and what we do with that, right? Because there's opportunity, and it's not all, it's not all fun and games all the time. There's challenge, there's heartbreak, there's disappointment, there's challenge. But what do you do with that? And the sense that came through is there was something, and like you said, you bring love to everything. And I think what you've learned, which is a beautiful expression of itself, is like you probably always had love for others, and you've, like you were talking about at the beginning, it's like you learn to give love to yourself. So you learn to give time off to really look at, and I can see the things that we're talking about, the ability to sit down and take stock. What are my values? What am I creating? We were talking about that, to take that into what you want from a relationship. But you have a relationship with your business, you have a relationship with yourself. So it's the same opportunity. And it's not just because you decide something that it's automatically going to happen. There is action to take, there is learning to go through. And yeah, the thing that really came through is this sense that, you're saying, like, you do have to come to a moment, I think, in running your own business or just going for whatever you want, right? Not that everybody who listens to this needs to be an entrepreneur and start their own business, although that's great if you want to do that. get in touch with me or Sarah. I'm happy to give you pointers on what to do and what not to do. But it's much about following your heart. There is a point where you just say, I don't, on one hand, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know that on some level, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then you find the courage, you create the opportunities for yourself. You do stumble, but it's in that you learn, and you prove yourself to yourself and to others. And I think particularly that's where integrity and authenticity comes through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we're saying yes to everything, and we're saying no to ourselves, really. And I think I was saying yes to a lot of things all of the time, because I was just letting life, like I said, happen to me for 6 years, like in the dating industry. And it's like, okay, am I being integral to myself and my wants? Am I working towards that life? Am I building what I want to build? What is it that I want to build? And it was focusing on that accountability to myself. And I think I was finding myself in a cycle of work hard, build a team, scale a business, never take any time off. But it looked like I had this great lifestyle, flying to New York and all over, and LA and whatnot, matching people. And everyone's like, wow, you've got the best job. And on the surface, it looked romantic, but in reality, I was tired. I was, always like feeling different time zones. So, neglecting myself so I could build businesses for other people and help other people find love and self-love. And I'm so accountable to myself that, I consciously take weeks off. I set myself deadlines for the evening to fill my own cup, which is how we started the episode. Like, filling one's cup, what does it look like? Well, back then, I probably thought it looked like a glass of wine and a bubble bath. And that was, I was doing my self-care, but no, I wasn't doing any inner work to understand what my values and who I was. And I guess now I'm always like sitting with a quiet confidence that I'm choosing my life. And choose, we only have today. And I think, if anything, the last year the last worldly, year of worldly experience has taught us the fragility of life. So every day I feel joyful, I feel present, I feel connected, and I simply don't do things that I don't enjoy. Not because they're, things that aren't difficult. Life business is difficult, and we're growing, but I embrace what is it that you say, Taylor? Something about the path of least resistance. I now I challenge myself with those resistant paths, because I often used to avoid them, and I'm just like, okay, but I'm choosing this. It's what I want. So yeah, I like to think, hope it doesn't sound self-righteous, but I like to think I'm a conscious person. I'm always consciously choosing.
Yeah, I think that choice can become conscious, and that doesn't mean, in my experience, that doesn't mean that everything happens according to the way you want it, but but bringing consciousness, it brings a sense of responsibility, and I just mean that it's something of your choosing, or my life is my choosing. So the good that happens, the bad that happens, the ugly that happens, that's on me. And if I want it to be different, then I take action towards that.
Yeah.
And I think that to kind of bring that back around to dating and relationships, that's an opportunity as well, because we were talking about how there is a sense sometimes it's like, well, I'm going to give this up to somebody or something else to take ownership and responsibility. And there may be a sense in what you're doing in terms of matchmaking, you're providing opportunities, but ultimately what happens on a date, as you go on the second, third, and 10th date and spend time with somebody, it's what you bring, the presence, the consciousness, the love that you bring to every situation and connection with somebody and with yourself, that is going to determine where you are and what's possible for tomorrow.
I think that's so accurate. As matchmakers, what we do is we connect people based on their values and their commonality and compatibility potentially. But yeah, our job is difficult, but the hard work sits with singles. You then have to cultivate that relationship and invest your energy, time, resources to make that happen. And you have to choose that person and choose the circumstances and, pave the way together. Otherwise, so it's about being accountable to the process thereafter the introduction as well.
And I think you were talking about that you have to choose love. We kind of have this romantic notion that Cupid fires his arrow and we're struck with it, and we're both struck with something, and then happily ever after. And we were talking before the show started, because yesterday I had an opportunity to go to a wedding ceremony of two very close friends of mine, and you know them as well. And what struck me, because I know them well, I mean, they're beautiful. They're a wonderfully matched couple, and yet they're two distinct individuals, incredibly distinct individuals. And one of the things they spoke about in their vows was how much they appreciated the other for giving them space, for complimenting what they were doing in life, but the support, the love, but also giving space for each to grow. And I thought, wow, what is such a beautiful, that's choosing love.
When you shared that just now, it had a really visceral effect on my body. I felt the excitement in my stomach, because stories like that, they give people, I mean, any singles that are, going to be tuning into this podcast, hope for love. It's the polarization and the separateness that sets that spark, that starts the flame. And what happens is, when we attach to others, romantically speaking, we somehow want to become one with them. And that oneness often looks like eradicating the separateness that first started the spark, right? Because we're so attracted to their differences, the air of mystery and the learning. But as attachment grows, we somehow as humans try to eradicate that separateness. But actually, what you're saying about the gorgeous couple that married yesterday is that their separateness, they're nurturing it so hard that it's keeping that spark and that flame burning really brightly. And there's so much beauty in that. And I think, you know, for anyone that's in a relationship as well, listening in, that is beautiful. If you can nurture that separateness, that spark will just carry on, you know. And I think so many people and so many couples forget that. That's what it's eroticism of the mind, isn't it? You know, what did you do today that was so separate to what I did today? What do you do in your space with your friends and your family when I'm not around? What do you, yeah, I just think separateness is the key as well as communication, you know?
Hold on just 1 second. I need to pause because my let me see how to do this. The card on my recorder just filled up, so
I can't believe my dog is always so naughty and she's been up to no good, hasn't she?
It's all right. It's all right. Learning something new. I think we're okay. So we're back. I'm not sure what to.
I was saying how the separateness is so beautiful for couples. I don't know when it would have stopped recording.
You're fine because you're being recorded on the computer. Right. Cool. And where do you see, I mean, you've been in this industry for 10 years. So what's the hope for dating in the future? Are we going to be more polarized, or how do we bring in connection, this the appreciation for separation to come together in connection, and what's possible for us?
Well, so many different things have come up for me just in that question alone. What's almost like what's next for dating? Well, my first thought on that is that if people that are searching for that, you know, significant relationship take it back to basics, I think we'll hear a lot more success in love and dating. What I mean by back to basics is, okay, yes, navigate online dating should you so choose. It's not the enemy here. We know that there are so many success stories from online dating, but be accountable, you know, show up in the process, align yourself with the people that you choose. And that can come from communicating what you want, who you are, and who you'd like to meet really clearly, because even though you might get less matches, you know, the quality of potential connection will be higher. Right? You're sieving automatically through clear comms, who you are and what you want. You're sieving out all of those people that are going to waste your time and energy. So I guess what's next for dating in my mind is taking it back to basics, really not waiting for, you know, a spouse to be delivered by Amazon Prime, and really being proactive and being accountable to yourself methodically, showing up authentically in all your interactions. And as we were talking a moment ago, you know, what's next for polarization? I think, you know, with really appreciating someone's separateness when you're dating them, what makes them unique and unique to your connection, and let them have that space to breathe and be them, and really enjoy that and see what they bring to the table that's different. It's not always about looking for the commonality, the sameness. It's looking for the separateness, which is there's so much beauty in that, and allowing them to nurture that. And we often hear that, you know, oh gosh, the key to a successful relationship is communication. Well, I would say to anyone listening in, scrub up on your communication. You know, we're not taught how to be exceptional communicators. It's a learned behavior almost. We have to learn, what does communication look like? What does communication after conflict look like? How do I find the resolve in that relationship? And that starts by looking at your communication in all the different relationships around you and taking stock of what kind of communicator you are. How do you show your care, your love, your affection for others and yourself? and become conscious of that. And I think that's what should be next, hopefully.
As you were speaking, I just was remembering something that I read years, probably decades ago. I don't remember who it was. It may have been Thomas More, who wrote Care of the Soul, who was talking about relationships, and whoever it was had this beautiful concept that a relationship is actually three participants. So there's, I mean, in a heterosexual relationship, there's the man, there's the woman, and then there's the couple itself, which is this sort of third entity, and that each has to have its space and place. Because if it's just about the couple, then the individuals fail, and don't have that opportunity, like we're talking about from this marriage. And similarly, if it's just about the individuals, then there's nothing on what it is what you are co-creating, because there is that choice of what you are coming together to create, whatever that is. I mean, everybody has their choice, right? It doesn't have to be marriage, it doesn't have to be children, it can be anything, it doesn't have to be monogamy, right? But that it is a co-created choice of what that entity is.
I 100% agree with that philosophy of how a relationship, it's like the foundations are built, like understanding what party A needs, party B needs, and then seeing the relationship as party C. And one thing that I've always really kind of pushed as a positive for a relationship is sitting down semi-regularly, perhaps it's at the beginning of each year if you're in a relationship, and vision boarding, what does our relationship look like this year? What do you need more of? Or what do you want less of? What do I need more of? How can we see each other, hear each other, connect with each other more? Is it, conversationally? Is it, between the sheets? Is it intimately? Are we meeting each other's emotional and spiritual needs as well? Are we growing together? Do we feel like, I guess it's having the maturity in a relationship to vision board and plan ahead, but whilst being conscious and present with where they're at and where they've been together and how it's serving them.
Beautiful. I was just thinking as well, there's there's three participants in this thing. There's you, there's me, and then there's the listener.
Exactly.
So hopefully we've cultivated a beautiful connection for those listening and or watching this in whatever format. Anything else you want to add?
Anything else I want to add? I guess what's coming up for me is it almost feels like it's setting my soul on fire. Just the idea of people becoming more conscious of what they of what they want in love for themselves, and how they're going to consciously show up in love for one another, or consciously work towards attracting love. I guess it's about being present, being playful and enjoying the journey. And if dating isn't making you happy, then why are you doing it? Fill your own cup. I think just want to add that do things with love, whether it's for yourself or to attract it.
Yeah, I think just because it does remind me, I was thinking when we're talking about consciousness, it's because a lot of the work I talk about is bringing intent and consciousness into whatever you're doing, and that it, as I say, it doesn't determine exactly what's going to happen, but when you put an intention and consciousness into something, then that's what you are choosing to create for yourself. So that's what you're saying. It's like, well, if dating or the experience isn't bringing you happiness, then you have an opportunity to choose to create a joyful, a fulfilling dating or relationship experience. And when you make the conscious choice in that, it does put responsibility on you. But what does it mean to create that? But it also allows for the fulfillment of that.
Yeah, and it's that saying that came up for me just then. If you're not choosing it, then you can change it. If something's occurring in your dating experiences, in your life, or in your love life, and you're not choosing it, then choose to change it.
Beautiful. I think we can that's a good place to stop. If you're not choosing it, change it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll be, I'm sure, connecting again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been honestly such a lovely conversation, a really nice way to start the week. Such a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, go on, be adventurous. Click the subscribe button. And join us next week for a new adventure. Until then,